So we are here with Rupert Sheldrake, A Dream to Me, because I work with family constellation, and I would like to start asking you about if you have an idea how your work has helped people through this field that you have, telling all the world about this field. So, but when we are doing this work, many people says it's magical. How can we feel this field? So I'd like you to explain to all the people in Brazil who likes to do family constellation and how this field works.
Well, the simple answer is that I don't think anyone really knows the details. But when I first came across family constellation work, it was in London, and the first time that Bert Hellinger came to England to give a workshop on family constellations, it was organised by the Gestalt Psychology Group, and they invited me along because they thought I'd be interested. And when I saw him working with people, and they picked representatives for the father, the mother, the brothers, the sisters, and then arranged them, I thought, this is amazing. It's as if the field of the family is being revealed in front of our eyes. And then the way the representatives responded to their position in the field was, for me, astonishing. And then the way that the field seemed to have memories from previous generations, I thought, this is just like morphic fields and morphic resonance. I was really, really excited. And I said to the organisers, could I meet Hellinger? I'd love to talk to him about this. And they asked him, and he was very excited to find I was there because he'd been reading about morphic fields. And so we met straight away and had a really good connection and conversation. And since then I've been to quite a few family constellation events, and my wife Jo leads these really effective and powerful groups herself. And so the more I've seen of them, the more I think there really is a field phenomenon here. The family is a morphic field. It is a social group with a field. All morphic fields have a kind of memory. And so I think that this is an important part of what's happening in that kind of work.
And how do you think that it works? Because, like, I had an experience with my dog. You talk about animals and everything. I had a movement in this in my field, and my dog my dog was like having a disease, and the other day he was not anymore. So how can we explain that we move something in this field, and it many people can start moving something in each one from this field?
Well, the nature of a field is to interconnect things. That's what fields do. Mm-hmm. And if you have magnets on a tray or on a table and you move one magnet, then the other magnets will move because you're affecting the whole field. That is the very nature of a field, to interconnect things. Mm-hmm. The sun's gravitational field contains all the planets, and they move within that field. The moon's gravitational field affects the Earth. As the moon moves around the Earth, then it moves things on the Earth. The tides, the fact that the sea goes up and down, is because of the gravitational field of the moon. That's the nature of all fields. And so if you have people interconnected in the family field, which often includes pets like dogs and cats, they're part of the family field. They're social animals, and they're linked into our social group as members of our family. So change one thing in the field and it will affect others within the field. That's simply the way fields work. And so to me it's not surprising that if one person undergoes a radical change in relation to the family field, then it will affect other members of the field, even if they're not present and don't know about it.
And if someone is dead already, but like my grandfather, if he had a trauma, how can this trauma be felt by me? How can it work?
Well, the thing is that fields have patterns, they have forms and structures. And if in a previous generation the family field has excluded somebody, for example, if someone's been sent to prison, or if they've been disowned by the family, or if they've committed suicide, or if they've been excluded in any way, then the field of the family contains an excluded person. And then in the next generation, the family field has this structure. Somebody is an excluded person. It's waiting for somebody who will take up that role. They're part of that pattern. So someone in the present generation may exclude themselves, become suicidal or quarrel with their family and move away, or reject the family for reasons that no one understands. And individual psychotherapy is very unlikely to find a reason for this, because it may not be conscious in anyone in the present generation. But morphic resonance is a process of inheriting memory unconsciously. And my own interpretation would be that this is in the field through morphic resonance. The field has a particular pattern that's built up in a previous generation. And morphic fields create habits. It's kind of habit. So somebody in this generation will have to be excluded or exclude themselves. And until this field is healed by doing this work which can re-include the person who's excluded back into the family field of that generation, and heal the whole field, then this pattern could go on for another generation, and another one after that, go on through the generations.
I don't know if you know, but in Brazil we can receive letters from the dead. And I have two experiences that we worked with some family that we had to put someone that was already dead. And after this constellation, one of the persons, this person went to a spiritual work, and this person received a letter from this dad saying that now he is happy because of this work. And I asked him, do you think we have this field also to communicate with the dead people?
Well, I've never heard anyone in England talk about it in that way. I mean, Brazil's unusual because there's such a high level of interest in spiritism and communication with the ancestors. So I've certainly never heard of anyone in England or the United States getting a letter from the dead. I mean, of course we have spirit mediums in England, and people do get communications from deceased people, or they think they do. But I've never heard of it happening in connection with constellation work. Probably it has happened, but if so, I just haven't heard about it. But, I mean, the idea of relating to those who are dead is found in almost every culture. And of course it's part of mainstream Christianity. And, you know, in the Catholic and in the Anglican churches, we have the Day of the Dead, November the 2nd, All Souls Day. And in our local parish church, there's a mass every year for the dead, and you can put in the names of anyone you want to be part of this. So that's a way of remembering them and praying for them. But there's also the idea that they are still in some relationship or connection to you. But this is implicit rather than explicit for many Christians in Europe. In Brazil, everything's much more explicit.
Yeah, I'd like to ask you about Brazil. What do you think about Brazil, about how we live with this field and all the religion and works are spiritual or something?
Well, I think Brazil is one of the most creative spiritual places on earth. I think it's the other country that I think of as being a bit like Brazil is India. I lived in India for 7 years. And India is full of different religions and spiritual perspectives and traditions. And it's also a place where there's a great deal of religious creativity. You know, people are fusing together different approaches. Now, Brazil is more interesting from a kind of Western perspective because in India they're coming out of the Hindu tradition, and whereas Brazil comes out of the Christian tradition, which is being fused with shamanistic traditions from Africa and from native Americans within Brazil. So the ingredients are different in Brazil, and they're more relevant to the sort of Judeo-Christian heritage of the West. So I see Brazil as a kind of laboratory of the spirit, where new things are happening, and where things are coming together in new ways, which can have an influence on other countries. So in recent years, I've become aware of scientists in Brazil who are open to these things too, and I think that would be a very exciting development. And this genius for synthesis and creative fusion that seems to be part of Brazilian culture, it's much less in other countries in Latin America. I mean, it's part of the Portuguese heritage, which was much more integrated than the Spanish heritage, or the British heritage. But the way the form it seems to take in Brazil just creates this integrated atmosphere, which I think is relevant to the rest of the world. I mean, Brazil can be a leader in these things in many areas. So I personally found it exciting, interesting, and very leading edge.
Last question. In all my programs in the radio, I say that your work with this field help us to see what we cannot see. Do you think you are guided by this field also, like a major field? Because you are very strong to do what you do.
Well, I pray every day. I mean, I couldn't do what I do if I didn't have a sense of connection to larger forms of consciousness. And I'm a Christian. I'm a member of the Church of England, which is very like the Catholic Church, except that it has married priests, women priests, now women bishops. I mean, the services are very similar to Catholic services, and they're beautiful, and we have wonderful music, and we have marvelous buildings, or great cathedrals and churches. And I like that tradition very much. So being part of a Christian tradition, partly through fairly conventional Christian liturgy, I like going to church, I like singing, I love the music, I play the organ, so I sometimes play the organ for services. And also through my own prayer and through going on pilgrimages and this sense of spiritual connection, I find a strength and a guidance that's essential really to what I do. I think if I felt I was just doing it just by myself with no help from any other dimension, it would be really hard to do because it involves a lot of opposition. Many people don't like this, and if you're trying to change a paradigm, there are a lot of people who are trying to protect the old paradigm and defend it. So for me, this is part of a larger process. I feel I'm part of a movement of a cultural change, which has happened in many countries through many people. And so I see my work as part of a larger process.
Thank you very much, Rupert, and you are very welcome to Brazil when you like. Thank you.
Thank you.